right. Hello and welcome. We are glad you're here with us tonight. I'm Erin Grunzy, the Program Manager for Common Cause Wisconsin. Tonight's webinar presentation hosted by Common Cause Wisconsin and the Fair Maps Coalition of Wisconsin and our partners is due to the dedicated work of many people over many years. We are now entering the next phase to reach our goal in the fight, and it has been a fight for fair maps and to end gerrymandering in Wisconsin, and to put people and not politicians in control of the process of redistricting through an independent redistricting commission so that our representative government is held accountable to the people and the people are able to elect our representatives in a better functioning democracy. Before we get started with the presentation, we're going to go over a little housekeeping. Here to walk us through these notes is the brilliant Molly Carmichael, Communication Director at the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign. Over to you, Molly.
Thanks, Erin. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on this Tuesday evening. Like Erin said, just a little housekeeping. So first and foremost, the slides, the draft proposal, all of the links, and a recording of this presentation. This will all be sent to you over email. It will all be available on the Fair Maps Wisconsin website, and we're going to try to make it as easy as possible for you all to find these materials. Next up, we ask that you please keep yourself muted. We want to make sure that everyone can hear our amazing presenters and stay focused on the presentation. Unfortunately, if folks are coming off mute or disruptive, we might need to mute you or remove you from the webinar. Next up at the bottom of the Zoom, you will see a button for chat as well as a button for Q&A. So for the Q&A, that is coming directly to the panelists. So if you have a question, we'd recommend that you put it in the Q&A so it's not getting lost and we can make sure we get to your question. We will have several moments throughout this webinar where our presenters will be taking questions, but please feel free at any moment when a question pops in your mind to drop it in that Q&A section. On the other hand, the chat, that's something that everyone can see, panelists as well as all of the other participants here. So we'll also be sharing links there so you all can click on the resources as we mention them. Feel free to use the chat, but we do ask that you keep side conversations, especially if they are unrelated to the presentation at a minimum, just so we can all be focused on the presentation. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Molly. I'll now introduce our presenters tonight. I've had the incredible pleasure of working and learning from both of tonight's presenters. Penny Bernard-Shaber is the current Common Cause Wisconsin board chair. Penny is from Appleton, where she served as a Democratic state representative from the 57th Assembly District, representing Appleton and Menasha from 2009 to 2014. She's been an active volunteer and advocate on many environmental issues, community service projects, and local boards, including as local activist and leader in the Fair Maps Coalition. Carlene Beschen recently retired as the Fair Maps Coalition and Grassroots Organizing Director. She has worked on Fair Maps for nearly 15 years and can be credited for bringing strength to the movement by connecting the resources and expertise of the coalition organizations with the determination and enthusiasm of the boots on the ground grassroots activists. Simply put, Carlene gets things done. Carlene's activism can be traced back to the North Carolina neighborhoods she grew up in and canvassed with her father. Together, Penny and Carlene intend to continue the movement for a better redistricting process for Wisconsin. Thank you, Penny and Carlene, and I'll turn it over to them for them to tell us about the whys and hows and to get into tonight's presentation. Penny?
Thank you very much for attending, everybody. We really appreciate you being here. As a Common Cause of Wisconsin member and as a chair of the Board of Advisors, I've been part of this ad hoc committee for quite a while, and we've been working together with the League of Women Voters and with Fair Maps Coalition to create this important draft proposal that we're going to discuss with you tonight. And we will continue to work through the legislative process and then also through the constitutional amendment process. So I thank you for being here and for listening carefully. Remember, you can find the details of this proposal on the Fair Maps Coalition website, and we'll have a QR code available. But also, I'd like to thank Jay Heck, our Common Cause of Wisconsin Executive Director, for his very many years of work on redistricting and on other good government necessities here in Wisconsin. Jay has been a nonstop worker for these kinds of things, and he's been a very big help to Wisconsin Common Cause. So as we move into our discussion tonight, I thank all of you Common Cause members for being part of this process, and we'll give you some work to do at the end of it too. Thanks.
I just have to give a shout out to both Penny and Jay. I met Jay the first time years ago, maybe 40 years ago, when my parents were visiting, and they were Common Cause members in North Carolina, where I am right now and where I did a lot of work. My dad was president and my mother was treasurer, and Jay remembered them always fondly and appreciated them, and I appreciate him and want to congratulate him on his upcoming retirement. Also with us this evening are the both Yuseli Flores, who is the current organizing director with the Fair Maps Coalition, and Nicole Gabriel. She is the grassroots organizer. And I'm really happy to say that because of a lot of work on their part and on the part of Nick Ramos and Deborah Krummeller and Jay Heck, we've been able to fund the work that we're doing in a way that we weren't initially, and now we have more staff. And so they are with us this evening as well, and we'll be monitoring the Q&A and the chat. So thank you to both of them for being here with us this evening. So Penny, I think we're ready to start.
So tonight we are going to be going through the history of what happened in Wisconsin and also what we've put together in our proposal. So we have the Legal Women Voters, the Fair Maps Coalition, and Common Cause all working together. We're going to talk to you about our draft proposal, and we're going to talk to you about what an IRC is, an Independent Redistricting Commission. We'll go through some history, and we will go through the details of what's next after all of this. So come along for a big ride. We'll try to teach you all kinds of good stuff, right? Right. So our ad hoc committee is a number of very strong people who've been working hard to learn about independent redistricting commissions in other states and have done a tremendous amount of research as we pulled together this proposal. This is a list of all of our members, and we thank them all for their hard work. And so then we're going to talk about who helped us with this process that we went through. We had experts from Common Cause National, experts from the Campaign Legal Center, and other people who have studied all the states that have independent redistricting commissions, which include Arizona, California, Colorado, and Michigan. And Wisconsin, we're working towards giving Wisconsin an independent redistricting commission. We have to do this through multiple steps right now because right now we're working on legislation, and that will be followed by working on a constitutional amendment. So we will be working on that as we go ahead, and we'll talk about the timeline we have to do and about the specifics of the proposal. So the experts that helped us again were Simone Lepper from the Legal Center, Dan Lenz, who is also a league from the Campaign Legal Center, Yuri Rudensky from the Brennan Center, and Katie Fahey from the People.org. We've used a number of different reports. We will be able to give you links to these reports either on the Fair Maps Coalition website or possibly in our chat. But we've used a number of different resources to try and come up with the Wisconsin model for the Wisconsin Independent Redistricting Commission. So Simone Lepper was the expert who has helped us tremendously. She is going to talk to us a little bit right now, and so we'll listen carefully to what Simone has to say. You always have a few technical things we have to deal with. Hang in there with us.
Hi, my name is Simone Leeper, and I'm Senior Legal Counsel on Campaign Legal Center's redistricting team. I'm very excited to be with you all briefly today to underscore the importance of what you've gathered together to do. I know that I do not need to tell active Wisconsin voters such as yourself about the importance of redistricting. You understand all too well that redistricting can either ensure or frustrate a truly representative government. What you might be a little less familiar with is the reform you're talking about, an independent redistricting commission. IRCs have the ability to take the power of redistricting out of the hands of partisan politicians and to put it into the hands of citizen commissioners. Those citizen commissioners, in turn, can put citizens and communities at the center of the redistricting deliberation and decision making process. This provides a way to do redistricting right, ensuring a transparent and equitable redistricting process that in turn can help guarantee transparent and equitable maps. Now, what I can do is provide some national perspective, a look at commissions across the country and what design features have worked well or maybe could use a little bit of workshopping in future efforts. What I can't do is what all of you can do, which is understand the perspective of a Wisconsinite. You know your community best. And so you all will know best what needs to be incorporated in an IRC to ensure that ultimately the needs of your community are incorporated in any maps that are created by that IRC. The work that you all are embarking on is not going to be short, and it's probably not going to be easy. But what I can guarantee is that it is worthwhile. I am very honored to be a very small piece of this effort working alongside you all, and I look forward to supporting your work in the future. Thank you.
Simone has been a tremendous help to us, and she has worked very hard on a campaign legal center report that we've used extensively. And as she said, this is going to be a long haul. It will take a lot of work from all of us, including you, to make sure that we create and implement an independent redistricting commission. But first, we're going to talk about a little bit of history, and then we'll give it away to Carlene to tell us all about what's happened in the past here, okay? Oh, first I'm going to tell you how we're going to work on a couple of things here. We can use this QR code that you can take a screenshot of it or use your cell phone and take a picture of it. We're going to talk about the IRC and define exactly what it is. We'll go over the draft proposal and try to do it with some details so that you can understand what we're doing. And then we'll have time for questions and answers, and we'll talk to you about what's next and how we're going to make this happen in Wisconsin. So once again, we hope that you're willing to stick with us here and listen carefully to what we're telling you and also then get actively involved in the process. But as
But
I
first,
said,
we're going to
yep, go ahead. We're going to go over some history. So take it away, Carlene.
thanks, Penny. Appreciate that. So many of you may not know that the last time that there was any kind of cooperation in the state of Wisconsin around creating new maps was in 1971. So just to give you a little perspective, I was in middle school at the time, and that is when the Magic Kingdom opened in Florida, 1971. In 1981 and 91 and 2001, after the census, there was partisan bickering, split government. There was not a decision that could be made to pass maps legislatively. And so they were decided by federal judges in federal courts. And then came 2010. Next slide. But we want to not go quite so fast because in 2009, Democrats controlled all of the branches of government. There was the governor and both chambers, so the political trifecta. They looked at the map on the left here, the Obama election when Wisconsin was incredibly blue. And even though they had an opportunity to pass nonpartisan redistricting laws, and even there was a hearing held by then Representative Jeff Smith, they took a pass because they thought they would be the people drawing the maps in 2010. And that didn't turn out the way they thought it would, because if you take a look at the map on the right, that's the Senate election results. That was the first time that Ron Johnson was elected, and also both chambers of the state legislature and Governor Walker were all elected in that year. And also J.B. Van Hollen, I believe, was elected as the AG. So all of the seats of state government went from Democrat to Republican, and then came the gerrymandering, which we know to be a bipartisan disease. Democrats had the opportunity to prevent it. They didn't take it. They thought they would be the ones to draw the maps, and then Republicans got the chance. So I'm not naive enough to think that Democrats wouldn't have done the same thing had they been in that position. If we take a look at election results from 2006 to 2022, we can see that sometimes Democrats cast more votes in statewide elections. Sometimes Republicans were the ones who voted more. But overall, it was pretty evenly split, especially if you go to 2016, 2018, 2020. 2022. We don't have the 24 election results right here, but you'll see them later. Very evenly split. And even statewide elected positions. So U.S. Senate, the governor, the attorney general, those races, they're not all, there's not always one of the all of those in November, but you can see in 2006, 2010, 2018, those were times when there was a governor's election, the attorney general, treasurer, secretary of state, and a U.S. Senate race, and those went back and forth. Sometimes Democrats won, sometimes Republicans won, and in 2018, Democrats took all of those offices. In 2022, 3 out of 5. But when we go to the next slides, you can see that at the state level, that was absolutely not the case. Before 2010, there were times when Democrats won, times when Republicans won, but after 2010, Republicans were overwhelmingly the winners, disproportionate to that very even split. And we hear that this is all about demographics. We know that that's not the case, because when we go forward, we see different things. But that was the case until 2023. Next slide. When the Clark case was brought, a redistricting case, to the Wisconsin Supreme Court, and the Wisconsin Supreme Court declared that the maps were unconstitutional based on non-contiguity. In other words, the districts didn't touch each other. They have to be touching, and there were pieces of them, little islands. And the court was set to choose a new map. There were 6 that had been submitted to them. They had experts review the maps. They were set to choose a map. And the Wisconsin State Legislature decided, well, you know what, maybe we should pass a map instead. And so they did. They chose to pass the maps that the governor, who was a party to the Clark case, had submitted to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And they passed those, and the governor signed them into law. And the next slide shows that signing ceremony on February 19th of 2024. The next election, as we'll see in the next slide, was significantly different than the previous, than just 2 years before. So on the left is the state assembly. You can see the difference, what I would call the imbalance based on statewide voting in 2022 compared with 2024, which is much closer and much more representative of the state's population. The same with the bar graph on the right, where you see 2022, there was actually a supermajority. Republicans held a supermajority in the or just were. And then after 2024, with more accurately representative maps, the balance in the state Senate also is much closer. And the ironic thing is that what happens when there is just such an incredible imbalance is that the things that the people of Wisconsin want, no matter what their political party are, do not get dealt with. They just don't even get hearings in committees, and so they definitely don't make it to the floor for a vote. So you can see these statistics come from Marquette Law School polls, and also from some polling that's been done around environmental issues. And there's a link that you'll receive that you can look at this data. But these are statewide polls of what Wisconsinites want. So we know that we need a permanent solution to this problem. As we've seen in other states, this is something, and here in Wisconsin, this is something that we need to deal with in law and in our constitution. We need a permanent solution. So there are multiple steps for that. First, we need to pass legislation through the legislature and have it signed by the governor. And then once that's done, we need to work on passing a constitutional amendment. And we need to get all of this done before the 2030 census. So that's a pretty tight timeline. We're going with legislation first because it should be an easier thing to do. And the next timeline shows what we're working on in that front. So the Fair Maps Coalition is hosting community hearings, both in person and virtual, like this one, into the fall. And then we will finalize the proposal and pass it off to legislators who, and we hope for bipartisan support for that, who will then take it to the next phase. And it will be strategic for folks like yourselves to really be pushing legislators to pass the independent redistricting legislation. We have invited state legislators to attend these public hearings. There's one happening in a couple weeks in Madison that we are inviting every single state senator and state assembly representative to attend. It will be at the Black Business Center in South Madison. And we are going to be looking for independent redistricting legislative champions who will co-sponsor this and push it through. And it will be on, again, all of us to pressure our legislators to pass this legislation. And while this is happening, we can expect all kinds of legal challenges that are coming at us from all sides. We in this group are staying super focused on getting this legislation passed because we know that it's the first step. And then the next thing will be, then we'll turn our attention to passing a constitutional amendment. Some of you may know that in order to pass a constitutional amendment, a joint resolution has to pass the state legislature in 2 consecutive sessions. It is not something that is signed by the governor. And then that constitutional amendment goes on the ballot to be voted up or down by Wisconsin voters. And so that will be the next thing once we get this legislation passed. So our next thing is if there are any questions about anything we just shared. We haven't even gotten into what the draft proposal is about yet, but just want to give you the opportunity to ask any questions about what we just shared. I think that means there's no questions, Penny, since neither
Right,
Sally or
so-
Nicole asked, so we'll just move ahead.
All right. So what we're going to do next is we're going to talk about the draft proposal for an independent redistricting commission in Wisconsin. We refer that to as an IRC. So I'll save myself a few stumbles on the words by saying IRC, okay? So let's define what an IRC is right away. An independent redistricting commission is citizen-led and distinct from the legislature, not controlled by representatives of any political party, and created for the purpose of drawing legislative and congressional maps after every 10-year census. The IRC shall have the authority to draw, consider, and propose maps to the legislature for enactment. Maps shall conform to prescribed redistricting criteria, including the criteria that the maps shall not provide a disproportionate advantage to any political party and are determined using accepted measures of partisan fairness. That's truly a mouthful, but what it basically says is an independent redistricting commission at this time will be drawing the maps without legislative input into how those maps are drawn. And then they will pass the maps over to the legislature to approve or to dissent, but not to change the maps that the IRC draws. And because we have a constitution in Wisconsin that says the legislature approves the maps, that's the way our proposal is written because we have to follow the Constitution. As soon as we pass this legislation, we will go forward and work on a constitutional amendment. So let's talk about some specifics of what the IRC is. In order to create the IRC, we have to have commissioners as part of it. And so we'll solicit applicants. We're going to ask people to apply directly. The Department of Administration will help to run this process, and they will spread the word online. They will spread the word with mailed out applications, and we'll mail them to 10,000 people, making sure that it's random mailing to people who are registered voters in Wisconsin. We will ask people to do their voter ID, to tell us what their demographics and give us information about themselves. And we'll make sure that we have people telling us who they are and why they want to be on the IRC. So we'll continue. This process will take some time, and we hope that it will be finished by the September 1st of the census year. So there's a timing process we have to use. Okay? We can go to the next slide. There we go. And so to be an IRC commissioner in Wisconsin, you have to be a registered voter. You cannot be a candidate or have been an elected official in the last 2 years. Can't be a leader in a political party. You can't work for a politician, campaign, or a political group. You can't work for the legislature or help write laws. We don't want you to be a lobbyist or work for a lobbyist. Don't want you to be a top level government appointee or a judge. We're really working on getting citizens to be the commissioners for the IRC. So that's the process that we will be using, mailed out ballots and also online, not ballots, but mailed out applications and online applications. We will ask people to swear to tell the truth on their application, and we will ask them to fully represent Wisconsin as a member of the commission. So after we get those ballots or those applications mailed out with the Department of Administration, we'll randomly pick a number of applications as our first selection process. We hope to have as many of these come in as possible. We would like to pick 240 of them as a group to choose from. We will use weighted selection, which means that we'll try to make sure that we are weighting things according to party affiliation. We're weighting things according to geographic distribution around the state. And we will also try to weight for demographic issues too, so that we have a well-balanced IRC that will have to work together in order to get things done. So we'll do the applications randomly, then we'll pick 9 people to be the first 9 commissioners, and they'll be picked by the Department of Administration. We'll try to balance that out with 3 from each major party and 3 more from an unaffiliated group of people. So we're going to try to really balance this commission between all the types of voters that we have in Wisconsin. We can go to the next slide. So then we're going to have those first 9 people go back to the group of applicants that came in and pick 9 more people. Again, using a weighted selection process so that we have people representing all the demographic groups in Wisconsin. We have people representing all party affiliations or unaffiliated people. And we have an end result of 18 commissioners. 15 will be acting commissioners and 3 will be reserve commissioners who will be included in the process but won't be voting unless a commissioner gets removed. So we have to have people who are up to date on stuff in the waiting in case we have to pull somebody else in because of an emergency or a change in the commissioner makeup. So we're gonna make sure that we have an odd number of commissioners so that we actually have a result of a voting that can't be tied. And we are going to ask that we have each party be part of the vote to say yes or no to something and make sure that we have a balanced commission that's working together. So then the commissioners will serve for the length of the census. So that's every 10 years. That doesn't mean that they'll be active throughout that whole time, but they will be the commissioners for that census cycle. And a person who is a commissioner will not be able to be fired from their livelihood job or removed from their work because of being a commissioner. So we build in some protections for people who join the commission. And a commissioner term will end if the commissioner passes away, if they resign, or if they no longer meet the requirements, or if they show a neglect of duty, some misconduct, or inability to do the job. We will try to make sure commissioners keep working together with everybody on the commission to get things done. When we have a removal that has to happen, it will require a 2/3 majority vote, and it will require that people on all sides of the political spectrum have to work together and vote yes to take the person out or no to not take the person out. It can't be a one-sided vote. So it will be very good to keep things balanced and coordinated in this fashion. And then if someone leaves the commissioner, one of the reserve commissioners will come in to take that person's place. So we'll be able to keep working on the maps as the process goes on. So here we have some specifics about the commission. Are there any questions up to this point?
We had a question from the previous slide deck. It was just, I think, a clarifying question about this initiative taking 2 years to get on the ballot. So maybe if you wanted to go back to just talking about the constitutional amendment process and why we need to do this 2-year process would be great.
Sure. Currently, the Wisconsin Constitution requires that our legislature approve the maps. They don't always draw the maps. They can, but they are not required to draw the maps. And in the past, experts have actually drawn the maps, and then the legislature presents them and votes to approve them, and the governor has to sign them or veto them. So right now, because our Constitution says this approval process is done by the legislature, we can't just create a commission that will do it without changing the Constitution. So we're taking a two-step approach here. Write legislation to create a commission, and then we have to go to the process of changing the Constitution. In order to change the Constitution, there is a multi-step requirement. A constitutional amendment, which is called a resolution, is written by either the Senate or the Assembly. It gets passed by both, and it gets passed in 2 terms, 2 consecutive terms, so that the legislature has to think about it and approve it twice. And after it's approved by the legislature twice, it goes to a ballot either in the spring or the fall, depending upon the timing of the legislature approving it a second time. Constitutional amendments do not require the governor to sign off on them. And as we've seen this last couple of years, the majority party has used constitutional amendments to kind of circumvent the control of the governor over legislation. So we know this is a complex process and it will take multiple steps. Pass legislation, pass a resolution twice, and get it voted on by by the voters of Wisconsin. So that's why we have a multi-step process here.
Thanks, Penny. There are no other questions open in the Q&A, so we can keep going.
Thank you for that explanation, Penny. And I know you were in the state legislature at a time probably when there were some constitutional amendment joint resolutions. So lots of experience coming to bear on that answer. I'm going to move now into once the commissioners have been chosen, just some of the things about the role of the Department of Administration. They, we in our deliberations about which department in the government should be the one that kind of oversees the application process and then helps the IRC get started. We determined that the Department of Administration makes the most sense. They have the most interaction with the public, and they oversee a lot of the various commissions that exist at the state level. So to begin with, they will be the organization that schedules the first commission meeting within a month of the time that all the commissioners are selected, and then they will also monitor the spending and help the IRC to run smoothly. First of all, by hiring a chief of staff who will help the IRC. The IRC will have staff that will, help oversee things as they go along. They may determine that they need to various kinds of staff, and that will be the Department of Administration will be able to help them with that. The IRC staff will do things like uh, pay for experts and legal counsel. They'll pay the bills that the IRC accrues from travel or other things. They will support the chair, the commission chair, and help set agendas. They'll upkeep the website and those kinds of things, and they will make sure that maps are published. The structure of the IRC will be that there'll be a commissioner chair, a commission chair, and a commission vice chair. Those will be chosen by the third meeting of the commission, and that will be by majority. The chair and the vice chair will work with the IRC staff to set meeting dates and times and the agenda. The chair will run the meetings, delegate tasks, and be the public spokesperson. The vice chair will step in if there is occasion when the chair is unavailable to do those things. We don't want to be unrealistic and think that any one person is always going to be available. So the vice chair and the vice chair will also be from a different party than the chair, so that we don't have two Republicans, two Democrats, or two unaffiliateds who are in the chair vice chair position. So the IRC members will, including the chair and vice chair, will have special trainings about redistricting, ethics, other kinds of things. They're required to attend all the meetings unless there's something extenuating that prevents them. They are required to be part of hearings, which we'll talk about in the next slide, to gather information. They must be part of those, and they must follow all of the laws that pertain to open meetings and keeping records and ethics as set forth by statute and the state constitution. So public hearings are a very important part of this process. There'll be 2 rounds of public hearings. The first round of public hearings will be about collecting information from voters, and they will be all around the state, throughout the state, both in person and virtual, at least one hearing in each region of the state, and at least one virtual option. And that's to gather from folks around the state what's important to their communities, what they want to see in maps, and that information will help the commissioners to create the first draft of maps. Once that first draft of maps is created, then there will be a second round of hearings when commissioners take those proposed maps for the state Senate, the state assembly, and our congressional districts, again, around the state, to ask for feedback. And again, there'll be one for each region and at least one virtual option. That's not the only way that Wisconsin residents can have input. There will be a portal on the commission's website where residents can submit maps and comments. All submissions will be public record. So some of you may remember that during the People's Maps Commission, there were maps submitted and people could comment on the maps that were submitted. So there'll be multiple ways for the public to engage, and that is the whole point of this process. People, not politicians, need to be determining what fair representation looks like. So the IRC again has to follow all open meetings laws, and they may not talk to folks who are not on the commission about unfinished maps outside of the public meetings. In other words, we don't want them talking to consultants or other folks individually. All that needs to happen in the public meetings. And no single commissioner will hold hearings or any kind of interviews or anything like that that does not involve the other commissioners. All this takes money. And so one of the things that we've actually sort of struggled with is how exactly should this be funded? We determined again that the state legislature should fund this in a sum sufficient form, which means enough money to do the job. And then it will be part of the state budget cycle every 2 years. Money will be used to pay commissioners, to hire experts, to host those public hearings we talked about, to maintain public notices and get things out in the local papers, and any legal matters that might come up. We have set a baseline of at least $4 million for the first round. We suspect that it will cost more than that. So that is a baseline. And then once it's happened, once we'll have a better idea of how much it will cost, and we will adjust things, or I shouldn't say the commission's budget will be adjusted for inflation. The DOA will help to track the spending. The IRC will be audited like any other state agency, and leftover money will be returned to the state treasury. So that is just about the functioning of the IRC. What questions do folks have about that portion? All right, hearing none, I'm going to give it back to you, Penny.
All right, so we can go on to the next process. The IRC is going to have to make a lot of decisions. They're going to have to look at maps that get submitted. They're going to have to put thought into it, and they have to have a process for making decisions. So most of the time, when they make a decision, it will require a simple majority. 8 out of 15 commissioners need to agree on a decision that's made. But then there's going to be big decisions to be made also, where at least 10 out of 15, or a 2/3 majority, would make the decision, would be required to make the decision. One Democrat, one Republican, one unaffiliated, or minor party voter. So members of the commission will be asked to work with each other and coordinate as they make decisions. One side can't make a decision without input from the other side. And they'll have to make big decisions, such as when removing a commissioner, hiring or firing experts, and on the final maps that'll be submitted to the legislature. So then when the commission has worked through the public hearings, and has worked through the maps that have been submitted or that they've created, they will have to determine which one of those maps is the map that they will give to the state legislature for approval and enactment. So then, in order to approve the final map that gets turned over to the legislature, again, you need a supermajority, 2/3 majority, or 10 out of 15. And you actually have to have 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, and 2 unaffiliated commissioners voting in favor of the final map. And if the commissioners cannot agree, then each member can submit their own map. Each commissioner will then use what they've learned, look at the maps that have been presented to them, pick or choose one of them, or draw a new map and submit them to their own commission for then approval. All of these maps will get ranked according to the criteria that we'll discuss in a little while, and whichever one is the best that meets all the requirements will then get a certain amount of points, and the one with the highest points will be chosen as the final map. And again, if nothing coordinates well and if there's no definitive approval of a final map, then those maps the commissioners drew, one of those maps will be chosen randomly and will be passed on to the state legislature. And when the state legislature gets the maps, they will have to go through the legislative process of voting for or against. They will not be able to amend the maps or change the maps. All they can do is vote for or against the maps. They'll have 3 chances to do that. And if they can't get it done, and if the legislature passes them, but the governor says, no, I'm not going to sign them, then the 3 chances each group gets 3 chances. If they can't do it, then it goes back to the commission to make sure that they look at the map, make sure everything's good, and then they send it to the Wisconsin Supreme Court so that the Supreme Court will end up with the final decision making if the legislature and the governor cannot agree. Currently, what happens is that if the legislature and the governor cannot agree, the maps will go to federal courts and will be redrawn and submitted back to Wisconsin. And that's what happened a number of years ago. The last probably, before 2010, it happened quite often that the legislature could not agree because it was divided government, and then the federal courts had to draw Wisconsin's maps. So we have to have our maps all meeting certain criteria. So here's a listing of the adoption criteria. These are legal requirements. The maps each district must have equal population. We have to follow the Voting Rights Act of 1964, I believe is the year it was passed. And we have to have an equal protection clause within the maps that gets approved. And then they also have to comply with the state constitution. And this is really only the state legislative maps that comply with the state constitution. So in each Senate district, we would have 3 assembly districts. All the districts would have to be contiguous or connected to each other. There could be no islands of unconnected areas. They have to be as compact as possible, and there are some mathematical scores that will be used to determine if they're compact. They would have to follow the redistricting that occurs at the local level. They'd have to try to follow the county lines and town lines and the districts within counties and towns and not divide them up as they can do right now. And the districts would have to have as equal a population as each other as possible. There's very little room for error in that equal population section. So then we also have to kind of think about these other very important considerations. We have to look at something we've learned about recently called communities of interest, and that's where people share the same area and same concerns and tend to work together with each other to solve problems. Keeping these groups together helps to make sure the voices can be heard, and it's not based on politics or helping a candidate or an elected official. It's based on local geographical concerns or economic concerns and that kind of thing. We have to make sure that the IRC keeps cities, counties, and towns whole whenever possible, and that it starts with the smallest area first. In 2011, the state of Wisconsin repealed the law that required us to do that because they wanted to go first, and then they made it very complicated for our county clerks, our municipal clerks, and our city clerks to follow the regular laws that were required. through redistricting. So now we're going to try to go back to what really should be used and what has worked. They also have to have political fairness as the outcome. They can't use that, they can't have a purpose of ensuring that one party is more successful than the other. They can't protect incumbents. They can't protect candidates. The districts have to be completely fair as possible. And we use data to determine that, but we don't use data to determine the districts. All right? And then once again, we ask if you guys have any questions, because this is a lot of stuff to take in. So we hope that you do have some questions.
Nothing in the Q&A section right now.
Yeah, it looked like there was a question from Pamela about a one-page summary. We have just worked through a one-page summary that would help us, and they put the link to that in the chat for you. Right.
As you can imagine, this is super complicated and we appreciate your attention to it. Just want to remind you of the timeline that we're working on right now. As you can see, we're in that pink box, the summer fall, where we are hosting these community hearings to get your thoughts, your questions. We really do want to hear from you, and we hope that you will take the time to read both the executive summary and, if you have the time, the entire document. It is pretty complicated. We have given you just a really brief overview. And then we are hoping to finalize this and move it forward. As I said, October 16th will be the day when we hand it off to, we are very hopeful to bipartisan group of legislators who have agreed to co-sponsor and support its passage. And then we will be pushing for that passage to happen in this session, the one that just started in September and will go through the winter and spring. At the governmental level, we've invited state legislators to attend these things. As I said, September 25th, we are inviting every one of the 132, 33 state senators and 99 state assembly representatives to an in-person hearing at the Black Business Center in Madison. And we're looking for legislative champions, and we need your help in that to really lift up your concerns about redistricting and push your legislator to co-sponsor this, and then keep that pressure on through the winter and spring. So that's our big goal, is to have this passed in this legislative session. We appreciate so much your attention to this and hope that you will read it. And if you didn't ask questions in this session, but have questions or have suggestions as you read it, please, I'm sure that Yuseli and Nicole will put their emails into the chat so you can email them, and and they will bring it to the committee, and we will certainly try to deal with those questions and that feedback. So thank you very much.
And it's very important that we all contact our own state representatives and state senators. Um, Please be sure to call their offices, write them a letter, talk to them, and ask them to support an independent redistricting commission so that the voice of the voter can be heard. It's clearly essential for Wisconsin. So please do make sure that you write them. Now is the time to be writing them, because as they come back into the fall, they'll be doing an active legislative session. And so now is the time to contact them and say, hey, I heard about this independent redistricting commission. What do you know about it? And would you support it? So it's as simple as that.
And I think now we're turning it over to Yuseli and Nicole. Is that correct, or am I doing this part? I can't remember.
Yeah, we can. I'd love to highlight just some of the resources that were discussed, and all of these are hyperlinked and clickable. Therefore, Nicole has already in the chat put in the FAQ document or landing page for our website where you can read into detail certain things that we may not have highlighted today, like why doesn't Wisconsin have a ballot initiative process? Why aren't we using or promoting something like the Iowa model? We really go into detail and we really encourage you all to um, really read the FAQ. It pretty much just breaks down certain components of the IRC draft proposal that we just couldn't put in there. Again, at the Campaign Legal Center, the ad hoc redistricting team that helped craft the proposal really leaned into amazing reports that have been catered to study other states to really focus and learn um, how they established an IRCs and how we can establish citizen-led commissions in Wisconsin. Again, that doesn't go without sharing. Common Cause also has a report called Unlocking Fair Maps that we looked into, as well as a roadmap for fair maps when in December, Common Cause held its first ever national conference of citizen redistricting commissions. Many states were there and present, including Wisconsin's very own Jay Heck. We also do encourage you to check out State Senate Majority Leader Tim Cullen's book, which highlights Wisconsin's gerrymandering issue and the fight for permanent fair maps in Wisconsin and why it matters. All profits benefit the Janesville Multicultural Teachers Scholarship as well as Beloit's similar scholarship program, Grow Your Own. We were in Janesville and we were in Beloit, and we were really welcomed by everybody there, which was amazing. And if you want to hear Carlene's beautiful voice again, as well as the League of Women Voters podcast, you can listen to Mapping Out Wisconsin's Future with host Carol Kobe, who talks about what's next for the Fair Maps movement. And that is all. We have a lot of time, so if folks had questions, that would be amazing to highlight or cover them here. I'm going to stop the share and just sort of make it panel style. So happy to answer any questions.
There was a question in the chat about who to contact. And truly, I think it's really important to contact your own legislator, your own state senator and state assembly person. And then you can build up a relationship with them and go to their town halls, go write them a letter, make a phone call on a regular basis. If you have to talk to their staff person, that's just fine because the staff people often know about the details of the legislator's schedule and the legislation that's coming before them. So talking to their staff is just fine. Also, what you could do is look on the legislative website and look up the committees that deal with elections and government affairs. You can contact those committee members and make sure that they know there's a bill out there, there's a proposal out there that you think is important, and then you would like them to work on it. So getting a hold of the committee members is also key because oftentimes the majority party will not assign a bill like this to a committee, and then it just kind of goes and does nothing. So working on the committee is really key too.
When you listen to Penny, you can tell why she was such an asset to our committee because she knows how government works. And there were many, many times, and is still in the meetings that we have now, where I say, deferring to you, Penny, you know this process much better than the rest of us. And it has just been so helpful to have her as part of this committee and so dedicated to this work. So I just need to give that shout out because I'm duly impressed every time I'm in a meeting with Penny. So thank you, Penny.
Thank you.
I'd also like to just invite everybody here today to our rally at the Capitol, October 16th at 12 p.m., right off of State Street. We're still looking for people that might be interested in tabling around the area, especially coalition partners. And if you're in Madison, please consider attending again October 16th at 12 p.m. outside State Street.
Even if you're not in Madison, we should make that a statewide thing. And also, the September 25th, that's a time to encourage your state legislator to attend the public hearing that will be in person at the Black Business Hub. It should be very well attended, and we have a big space on the fourth floor there. And I am looking forward to being able to talk to legislators as well as Wisconsin residents about this proposal.
And to
So,
close
go ahead. Sorry.
us out, you can follow us on tour. September 11th, tomorrow we'll be in Menominee/River Falls, an hour away from St. Paul, Minnesota, not to be confused with Menominee Falls. In October 14th, we'll be in La Crosse. September 26th, we'll be in Milwaukee. September 25th, like Carlene mentioned, we'll be in Madison. October 15th, we'll be in Winnebago. And then October 16th, again, is our rally at the Capitol.
So the most of the resources that you need, not the slideshow or maybe the slideshow, but definitely the draft proposal, the FAQs, all of the dates and those kinds of things are on the Fair Maps Coalition website. So I see people have concerns that they're going to miss information. It's all there. It's very comprehensive. And so, go there and you'll find everything that you need. And as I said before, if you have questions that you're not getting answered, you can certainly email Yuseli and Nicole, and they will bring it to the committee and we will deal with those questions. Of course, they probably know the answers too. They don't have to bring it to the committee. Actually, they do know the answers. So, Aaron, I think you're back up. We're done.
All right, well, I'll just give it a second if anybody has any questions. And yeah, like what was said a couple times, we'll be sure to be in touch with some follow-up action items and any information. And yeah, this is a very open process. Comments welcome, even if you think of them, as you're processing it all. We know it was a lot of information to take in one sitting, but if you like I often do, think of my best question hours later after I have a chance to ponder and reflect on what was told to me, then all of the wonderful people who are available will be able to answer those questions. So then if there's no other questions, and I don't see any more coming up, then I just want to close us out with a few thank yous that are, very important. It's important to acknowledge our team here tonight: Yuseli, Nicole, Carlene, Penny, and Molly. They were very integral in making this event happen and for it being successful. I put together the tech and they all made it run. So I appreciate all their input. And thank you for your time tonight. Also, thanks to the League of Women Voters Ad Hoc Committee. Not enough can be said for the many hours and time that they've put into drafting this proposal and using, their talents and skills to create this document and keep it a living document, to take that input. So I appreciate that being shared with you tonight and their time on that. Then just a shout out and a thank you to the Fair Maps Coalition, our partners, the organizers, all of our activists and leaders within the movement. Certainly things get done because so many people are doing so much of the work. And so that needs to be also acknowledged and appreciated as well. Finally, thank you all for attending. Thank you for your time tonight. Thank you for being part of the process. And we hope that you can help us move this proposal for an independent redistricting commission through Wisconsin and help us be successful along the way. Be well and good night.